Have you ever felt the sensation when someone clearly less intelligent than you suddenly becomes more successful and influential? You look at him and wonder, is he truly a genius in secret? Or is the world just so complex that he is lucky? Machiavelli would smirk at such a question. He wrote that fortune is a woman, and she favors those who approach her boldly. Luck does not reward the smartest. It rewards the most decisive. In fact, most of those who seem dumber to you really are, but they have something more valuable than intelligence: the determination to act while others are still thinking and analyzing. It is this,
Do you
not
agree with his
intellect, that
assessment?
creates
I do.
empires. We live in a
His
culture
logic
where
is sound.
intelligence is exalted, much like scholars were revered in Renaissance Florence. From childhood, we are taught that the smartest wins. Study hard, earn diplomas, climb the career ladder, and life will submit. But this is merely an illusion that the princes believed, thinking that only wisdom would protect them. As Machiavelli noted, in a ruler, it is not the wisest who survive, but the most adaptable. Nevertheless, this illusion continues to exist. Millions of people strive for diplomas and certificates as if they were sacred relics, believing that knowledge alone grants power. But the market is not an exam, but a battlefield. The battlefield belongs to those who act without waiting for full understanding. If intelligence truly determined wealth, then philosophers and professors would be the richest. But look around. Universities are full of geniuses advising kings, yet they die in poverty, while those of average abilities build their empires. Leonardo da Vinci, despite his genius, died dependent on patrons. Cosimo de' Medici, who financed him, left one of the most powerful dynasties in Europe to his descendants. One creates, another owns. Intelligence can create a masterpiece, but power owns the gallery. This scenario repeats over and over. Richard Branson, suffering from dyslexia, could not sit still in classes, dropped out of school at 16, and yet built an empire encompassing music and space, not by outsmarting others, but by outpacing them. Nikola Tesla, the greatest mind of his time, invented world-changing technologies but never learned to sell his ideas, dying in poverty despite the tragedy. Machiavelli would say, Tesla had virtue, brilliance without cunning to manipulate people. This is the quiet tragedy of most intelligent people today. They confuse understanding with control, believing that a clear vision of things guarantees their success. But the world does not bend to those who understand it. It submits to those who act. As Machiavelli warned, it is not titles that make a person, but a person who gives honor to a title. Intelligence, like a title, is worthless without the power behind it. The same happens in every generation. Scholars give advice, merchants act, thinkers create theories, founders build companies, strategists draw maps, conquerors set out on campaigns. The outcome is always the same. The brave are rewarded. This is not injustice. It is law. A modern ruler is defined not by their mind, but by their actions. Yet there is a paradox. The smarter a person is, the more easily they become a prisoner of their own mind. He strives to develop the perfect plan before taking the first step, waiting for complete confidence before risking it, prioritizing precision over speed, and as a result, watches others succeed by acting decisively, though not perfectly. Fools win not because they know more, but because they know less, and that is why they move faster. The brave move forward, stumble, learn, and adapt, while the smart freeze at the start, endlessly honing their thoughts while others are already reaping their rewards. Think about it. In a game where time is the currency of power, every delay costs influence. Those you call lucky are actually just those who dared when you hesitated. Fortune does not care who is worthy. It only cares about who dares to reach out to her. This is why Machiavelli's advice to princes applies perfectly to modern wealth. He wrote, "Men must either be caressed or destroyed. There is no safe path, no middle ground. The market does not reward perfection. It pays for aggression disguised as confidence. So the question is not why they are rich, but why you are still waiting. Why do you expect the idea of a partner the moment when luck is already passing by?" The great Medici, Rockefellers, Masks, devils did not become rich because they were the smartest. They built their wealth just as they conduct conquests, quickly, riskily, flexibly. The world is not obliged to reward intelligence. It only responds to actions. As long as you stand still, your mind sleeps. This is energy that has never been unleashed. But there is a dark side. Intelligence not only does not make you rich, it can make you poorer. The smarter a person is, the more they fear making a mistake, and this fear keeps them at the entrance of the labyrinth, preventing them from taking the first step. Machiavelli warned, "He who hesitates in danger invites destruction." Nowhere is this more evident than in the modern pursuit of wealth. Imagine two men before a vast labyrinth. At its center lies everything they dream of: freedom, power, abundance. The first, a genius, takes out a notebook and begins calculating all possible paths. He draws diagrams, makes predictions, and looks for dead ends. The second, ordinary and unremarkable, simply enters the labyrinth. He stumbles, turns back, makes mistakes, but keeps moving. And while the genius is still analyzing his maps, an ordinary man reaches his goal through mistakes and attempts. This is not a parable. It is a law of life. Inaction often masquerades as intelligence. Rethinking seems productive because it mimics progress, but the truth is that most intelligent people are trapped in the cage of their own analysis. They call it planning, research, or caution, but in reality, it is the fear of losing control, the only thing they value above all. In their desire to maintain control, they lose what cannot be regained: time. History repeats itself from century to century. Bold merchants from Florence, who risked borrowing from kings, created entire dynasties. Cautious moralists, who debated ethical questions, remained only as their advisors. Even today, the situation hasn't changed. Corporate climbers who spend years polishing their resumes and collecting diplomas rarely achieve wealth. Why? Because every year of study is a year when someone else is already taking action. So-called fools are not paralyzed by the fear of making mistakes. They move forward, fall, rise, and evolve. The intelligent often hesitate to act, as the mere thought of potential failure shatters their self-image. Machiavelli understood this psychological trap well. He claimed that it is not mistakes that ruin people, but constant indecision. When you are told from childhood that you are smart, this label becomes a cage. You fear acting to avoid shattering this image. Every mistake feels like proof that you are not as smart as you thought, and you protect your ego by avoiding risk, not realizing that risk is the only path to power. The irony is that what society admires is intelligence, which becomes an excuse for inaction. Look around. It's evident everywhere. A man with an MBA diploma still hasn't started his own business because he is still studying the market. A talented designer sells no products because the logo is not yet perfect. An intellectual dreaming of writing a book endlessly rewrites the first chapter. Each waits for approval from confidence, a permission that never arrives. Machiavelli would call this waiting a manifestation of cowardice disguised as wisdom. Meanwhile, those with less knowledge, diplomas, and fears have already passed halfway through the labyrinth. They learn by engaging with reality. Every mistake for them is reconnaissance. Every wrong step is a source of information. As long as they move, their world expands. Meanwhile, the thinker who ponders too long sees his world shrink. That's why the bold seem lucky. Machiavelli said that fortune favors the brave, but the essence of his words is much simpler. Luck favors those who take action. Those who move are truly open to chaos, but along with that, new opportunities. Meanwhile, those who remain stationary avoid both. This pattern has been observed throughout time, from the first industrialists to digital magnates. Founders who changed the world rarely waited for perfect conditions. They released imperfect products, endured failures, learned and adapted until the world yielded to their will. Cautious leaders laughed at them until they themselves were ousted. There is a grim truth. Intelligence creates the illusion of safety. The smarter a person is, the more reasons they find not to act. One more course, one more plan, one more clarification, and then I will be ready, they tell themselves. But readiness never arrives. The battlefield knows no perfect moment. Those who hesitate during war perish without taking a step. In Florence, rulers who waited for certainty before striking at their enemies vanished from history. Those who acted first, even with mistakes, entered the annals of history. The same principle applies in the world of business, investments, and influence. Your hesitation is someone else's opportunity. So why do smart people remain poor? Not due to a lack of talent, but because their minds turn inward, feeding fear instead of direction. Intelligence becomes self-destructive. They do not trust the movement because it seems chaotic, but they do not understand that chaos is the natural environment of strength. Imagine that this mechanism can be changed. What if the intelligence that once held you back can be turned into a powerful weapon? What if you learn to think like Machiavelli himself? clearly but always with an eye on conquest. Those who master this art do not just analyze the labyrinth, they create it for others to get lost in. It is no coincidence that Machiavelli highly valued virtue, the courage to act decisively in times of uncertainty, which is more important than pure reason. He understood that the wisdom of inaction is futility. The strong are not those who think more, but those who do what others only talk about. Intellect creates a vision, but only action gives it form. Those who master the art of execution become architects of their destiny. Execution is the boundary that separates dreamers from dynasties. Machiavelli wrote, "A promise is a necessity of the past, broken is a necessity of the present." This means a wise ruler adapts to reality, not to theories. The world rewards those who let go of ideal plans and adapt more quickly. Jeff Bezos didn't invent e-commerce, he simply executed it with ruthless consistency. Every mistake became feedback, every risk a lesson. He wasn't the smartest in the room, he just started acting while others were still debating. This is what virtue means in the modern sense. Most people misunderstand the meaning of the word execution. They think it means to work more, longer, without stopping. But execution, according to Machiavelli, is something else. It is strategy, cold-bloodedness, and discipline. Strike when the moment is right, and retreat when it is not. Both ancient princes and modern founders know one truth. Wealth does not come from intellect, but from movement. Movement creates inertia, turning ideas into empires. Ideas, like seeds, would be useless if not planted. As Machiavelli would say, you can gather 1,000, but only those that fall into the soil of action will sprout. Everyone you admire, from Renaissance bankers to Silicon Valley giants, had thousands of ideas, but they were distinguished by one thing: the courage to realize them first, constantly nurturing and ruthlessly cutting away the excess. Execution, not imagination, turns vision into empire. But there is another form of mind that influential people value just as much: social intelligence. Machiavelli called it the ability to make others act in your interests while they think they are acting for themselves. This is not a simple manipulation, but a mastery of perception. Great rulers, as he noted, were not always the strongest warriors or the wisest scholars. Their true power lay in the ability to influence human minds. He remembered Lorenzo de' Medici. This ruler of Florence used not a sword, but a network of alliances. His wealth ensured loyalty, and his charisma wielded influence. Rivals sometimes began to believe they served their own interests, although in reality, they were subordinated to him. Let's bring this into our time. Steve Jobs was not an outstanding engineer and did not create chip designs, but he convinced the world of the importance of his vision, and that became his modern weapon: influence. Social intelligence is the art of leading without coercion, the ability to earn trust, inspire others, and evoke desire, rather than relying solely on logical arguments. Machiavelli noted that people are simple and succumb to immediate needs, and a deceiver will always find those willing to be deceived. Harsh, but fair. Today, this deception is called branding, persuasion, marketing, a soft weapon of conquest. Investors do not invest in tables, they invest in people. Buyers choose emotions, not arguments. Teams unite not around intelligence, but around vision. Therefore, the words of one person can influence markets. They have turned trust into a weapon. However, many intelligent people neglect this second discipline, believing that success depends on the meritocracy of ideas, forgetting that any idea must pass through the prism of human emotions. As Machiavelli warned, he who relies on people is actually building his house on shaky ground. If you cannot shape this mass, evoke desire, loyalty, and fear, it will consume you. Thus, two key aspects become clear: execution and influence. The first makes you effective in the world. The second makes the world bend to you. One without the other creates imbalance. Pure action without conviction turns you into a warrior, while pure conviction without execution turns you into a charlatan. Their combination forms the basis of modern power, the thinking of those who manage both money and people. But there is another important aspect: mental discipline, which unites everything together. Even the best strategy can collapse without the right internal state. Ancient princes knew this, and modern billionaires live by this principle. The internal state determines whether you remain trapped in fear or take your fate into your own hands. At the end of each lesson on power, Machiavelli returned to one fundamental principle: to act. He warned that fortune is a woman, and she can only be mastered with courage. In other words, she submits only to those who dare. Other qualities, intelligence, caution, morality, are subject to this law. Deep thoughts, wise plans, or beautiful words are not enough. If you do not act, luck will turn away from you. If you want to turn your mind into wealth, your primary duty is not just to learn more, but to act sooner. Stop waiting for confidence. Life does not grant it. The powerful act and then adjust their course. The powerless analyze and then disappear. There is no perfect moment. Wealth comes to those who act while others remain indecisive. Defeat is not a shame, but rather the price of learning. The main strength lies not in ideas, but in the people who believe in you, follow you, and understand your vision. Influence governs empires. Speak with passion, not dry facts. Dominate emotions, not logic. Ultimately, success belongs not to the smartest, but to the bravest. Act now. Fortune rewards movement, not doubts.